Okay, so good afternoon. I'm Anto Budiarjo. Welcome to Monday Live. This is something that we do every Monday afternoon to try and figure out the future for smarter buildings. It's good to have you with us today or watching this on YouTube. Um, we're a group of people. Our profiles are listed on Monday Live in case you're wondering who we are. And just a reminder that views expressed here in this hour are personal of whoever said it, not of any company or organization. Just keep that in mind. And please do post questions and comments on the Zoom chat to make this as interactive as possible. And also this deck is available on mondaylive.org if you want anything from it. This is our second week in September talking about fate, focus on bringing innovation to all of this conversation. So for the rest of the month. And our agenda today, normal news and chit chat, and then on innovation, we want to talk about scalable innovation for operations, specifically the operations side of things. Looking forward to that. But before we do that, I'm going to hand it over to Ken Sinclair for some news from automated buildings. Ken, what's going on?
As always, lots going on. We start up in the left-hand corner there. I stole this from the C4SB site. Open, more value, open, more options, open, more opportunities. They've been doing some work on their site. I am enjoying it because I think I now have a better understanding of what it is they do. So I would recommend you click on that and go through and take a look at what C4SB is doing. They've done a bunch of work around. They've got a bunch of explanations of how that's going to go. I'll leave you on your own time to take a look at what's going on, but there's been some significant movement there. Below that, we've got our summary of last Monday's, and that came on Beyond the Blank Page, Unlocking the Data-Driven Future of Buildings. That's just a good summary and leads to the session. Basically, AI took a run at trying to summarize what went on there. So that's there for you if you didn't have time to spend the hour watching it. And then below that, we've got our AHR. We've got a sneak preview of our sessions in Vegas. Our theme this year is navigating complexity, escalating.
You've forgotten it.
Just keep rolling it up. I was in the middle of reading that. Complex. There we go.
Sorry.
Navigating complexity, escalating opportunity today, tomorrow, and the future. And we kind of kicked this around a lot, and we came up with chaos. We're working with words like that. And we kind of, the negativity of those kinds of words, we kind of thought about it. What it really is we're all in this stage that we're navigating complexity. And the complexity is just basically a lot of our future and our past all coming together. So that's going to be our first session. Let maybe stop there. Just roll slower. Maybe let me tell you when to roll. Okay, the next one is this is our third year of doing this session of the autonomous building. Tracy's heading this up. Looking to be an exciting program. AI Buildings 2026, redefining autonomy from people to portfolios. So we're looking forward to that. Maybe just keep rolling. Next one. The evolution of the MSI, we're seeing that there's a lot of changes that are happening there. We want to open up that discussion. What we're seeing is the consultants coming across the floor. There's the consultants are concerned that the MSI is really defining the building because the digitalization is becoming such a significant piece. So I think that'll be a great session as well. You just keep rolling. The next one. This one, BACnet to the future. We basically are wanting to just deal with how BACnet is going to evolve into the clouds and come up with a Yeah, it's kind of started as a wiring standard, and it's kind of now evolving into a communication data transfer. Uh, that's probably not quite the right words, but anyway, and C4SB has picked that up and has a committee. That's one of the reasons that I put the C4SB at the top, was because they're starting to deal with some of this as well as a lot of these issues that are there. Maybe the next one.
Let's not go through all of it because there's
Yeah.
16.
Yeah, there's a
We'll
lot of
fill
them.
the
There's
time.
16 of them, so we should do that.
Let's just go back to that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. The other one that one of our advertisers did this insights from the industry leading to uh, doing interviews of the leading control integrators, and those are interesting interviews because we haven't really talked to that crowd that much, and there's some interesting information there. In addition to that, the Skyposium, which is Sky Foundry's seminar, is coming up, and we've got a link to that there as well. And in addition to that, we're a media sponsor of the Smart Buildings, which is mid-October in London. And it's quite a few of our sponsors and speakers are a part of that event as well. So I think you probably want to take a quick look at that. And I think that's probably all the crucial stuff. Back to you, Anto.
Great. Thank you. As always, Ken, a lot going on. Moving on to a C4SB update. So, Rick, over to you. You're muted as well. Rick, are you there?
Sorry about
There you
that. I'm trying to get unmuted and I froze up. My internet connection is bad, but the so we got all these working groups, and I appreciate Ken highlighting the C4SB on the first slide in the news where we're talking about kind of the definition of open and how open is going to affect the industry. But these what are now 14 different working groups are all about the digital transformation of the built environment, and what we're trying to do over these next few sessions, and then once a week here on Monday Live, is give insight to one of the working groups or a couple of the working groups and what's happening, and to try and give people a better idea of hey, not just what's being worked on, but what maybe people can join in on or contribute to or spend some time helping with. And so each week we're going to pick one of the working groups to sort of highlight. And I thought maybe that Mike Bordonaro would be joining this one to be able to talk about the asset leadership standard, but I don't see him yet on the list of people attending. So I thought maybe we'd jump and talk a little bit about the BACnet Cloud Collective Working Group, and either have Jim Lee put you on the spot, or Anto talk about some of the progress or some of what has happened with this managed BACnet, now BACnet Cloud Collective working group, if that's okay.
Sure, I'd be happy to dive in for a sec. In the BACnet Cloud Collective, we recently arrived at that new name from the BACnet community at large. We are working primarily on cybersecurity for building automation and looking at how we can bring the management of BACnet and BACnet Secure Connect into the fold and into the broader Linux computing environment, and sort of continue to further this fusion of building automation and IT, where the two things come together very powerfully in cybersecurity. So we'll be looking at trying to codify some standards and move along how we're developing standards in building automation to be compatible with the regular IT world. I think it's going to be exciting, and look forward to working on it over the next several years. Anto?
I don't have anything to add on that. I think this is really exciting, bringing BACnet into the cloud. So
great.
do you have any more, Rick, on your side?
No, just wanted to kind of set that precedent. Thanks, Jim. I didn't give you a heads up, but as always, you hit it out of the park. The We're really excited at C4SB to be able to have BACnet Cloud Collective get their name figured out, and B, we've got the logo for it too, so that's exciting. But the I think it's a really interesting, it sets an interesting precedent for work that we can do inside of the C4SB that complements work that's being done by ASHRAE and by the BACnet committee. And for other open source projects that are out there that are being worked on, or open source communities, hopefully it sets a little bit of a model of a way to be able to do a hybrid sort of effort between what we can do with C4SB and what's already being done in other groups. So I wanted to make that point. Some of these working groups are ground up brand new, but a lot of them are sort of transplants and or hybrids of something that already exists. And we're excited to bring attention, initiatives, slight twist to what's already being done. And again, I think the BACnet working group is a great example of that. Back to you.
Cool. Thank you. Any other news or thoughts that anybody want to contribute before we move on? Hearing none, let us proceed. We're talking about innovation, and specifically scalable innovation for operations. That's kind of the focus of today. And as somebody pointed out earlier, Anno's going to lead this conversation, so I'm going to hand it over to him. But before doing that, I thought that sort of put together this slide. We talk about scalable, and it sort of did occur to me over the weekend that what does the scalable mean? And I think it's scalable innovation beyond just size. Size is the most obvious one. Small and large buildings are different, but there's probably other ways of thinking about scalability and innovation. And that's just a sort of just to put that thought into the conversation. And also, I'm going to, before I hand it over to you, Anno, I'm going to welcome Glenn Almendinger. You were not here last week, but Glenn is one of our new members of Monday Live. So welcome, Glenn. Good to see you here.
Nice to be here, everybody. Thank you.
I think a lot of people know Glenn. He's going
to see you again, Glenn.
So over to you, Anno.
Yeah, so we want to cover the scalability of innovation as it applies to operations, right? Is my focus for operations. And of course, I come at this from the perspective of what I'm doing at the moment, which is heavily operations focused. So just for background, when I talk about operations, obviously we are a property manager, and our business is to manage.
For those that don't know who you work for.
Oh, sorry. I work for CBRE. My role is I lead a program initiative called Smart FM, which is actually domain. So Smart FM, our focus is how do we take smart, innovative technologies and apply it to the facility management process. And when we talk about facility management, and which is actually an interesting subject in itself, which I won't go into a lot of depth, but I do find that the term FM or facility management is widely abused, if you will. Or let's call it, it's very elastic as far as what people call facility management. So in our scope and in our focus, it is everything and anything to do with running a building. So that includes, we will, as I happily describe it, we will mow your lawns, wash your windows, do your cleaning, look after your chiller, can do a complete retrofit for your facility, you name it, right? We'll do your janitorials, we'll do your HVAC, we'll do your lighting, whatever you need, we'll do from a facility management perspective. So we have a very broad focus on FM. And specifically what I do in that scope is how do we take smart building technology, smart innovations, and make a material impact on the operations, and specifically on the cost and efficiency of those operations, right? Because when you think about it, folks like myself and JLL and Cushman Wakefield, you know, not to be too crude about it, but we sell bodies, we sell people to do those services. So how do we make those folks more efficient, more effective, better? We face the skill gap that everybody else is coming into who's part of this particular space. Aging out is a big deal for us. We did an interesting analysis of the different classes of technicians that we have throughout the 20-odd thousand technicians we have out there. And it's an interesting spread between, you know, entry-level folks to what we call our wizards. You know, we have few and far between wizards, but we have a lot of entry-level folks, and there's age gaps and knowledge gaps and all those sort of things to bridge. So innovation in that aspect of it is my focus, and that's really where I come from, right? From an operations focus, how do I make folks better skilled, more knowledgeable? We're getting heavily into what's known as the on-demand world for facility management as well. Think of you know, if you think about my best analogy of on-demand, someone who's cracked the on-demand business, when you think about it, is Uber. Right? People think Uber is a replacement for taxi. Well, no, Uber's technology is the whole on-demand software that they've got running in the background. How many cars of what type of what, at what times do I need where at any one time, right? And so I need a lot of information. I need a lot of data about that. I need where are events going on in the city. Is there something going on a Friday night? Is you know, schools closing, you know, all sorts of data. Is the weather bad, right? Is it going to be raining, which people uptick? So they've really cracked the on-demand model. Their delivery mechanism happens to be a car and a guide to drive you, but it's how do I know I get my car when I want it within the time frame that I want it? Because that's really the value of Uber at the end of the day. Similar things happening in facility management. How do we move to an on-demand world? Again, occupancy is not where everyone thought it was going. You know, we did a bit of a spurt of a return to office, but we seem to be going through a settling down period again where it's not at 100%. It's still, you know, people do the Thursday, Tuesdays, or Wednesday, Thursdays, or whatever. So it's still all over the place, which is a challenge for facility management, right? I mean, how many electricians do I really need? How many plumbers do I really need? How many mechanical technicians do I need? How many controls folks do I need? When do I need them? Where do I need them? If the demand on the building is no longer level or consistent. So on demand is becoming a big deal. We're starting to see initial contracts in that area called demand-based facility management. DBFM is becoming a thing. So anyway, all of that means part of what we look at is how do we take innovation technologies to make a material impact on those operations at scale, which is the other tricky part, right? So you need to be able to scale that up to the, again, whatever it is, we've got 20, 30,000 technicians out there in the field. And how do you do that in a way that makes them more efficient, more effective, doesn't displace them? I can't afford to displace them. This is not about putting folks out of jobs, right? This is not about using technologies to take people out of the equation. This is about how do I make those folks more skilled, more knowledgeable, more effective, and more mobile, so that I can do more and better for my clients, basically. So that's really our big focus, and that's why we call it innovation, and that's why we call it Smart FM at the end of the day, right? It's how do you use smart technologies to better impact facility management. Energy is still a play in there. Interestingly enough, we get asked about energy, but energy comes about because our clients typically ask for it. We as a company don't really make a lot of, there's not a lot of revenue profit for us in the energy play because the building owner pays the energy bill. So whatever we save, we could do cost sharing, that type of deal. But by and large, our biggest cost is people and stuff. So scalability is huge for us. We talk about, and then it's global scalability, right? So I got to deal with clients who've got offices all around the world. It's not just what's your answer for the US, it's what's your answer for everywhere. All languages, all locations, all places, all at once and stuff. So that's our big focus.
So the on-demand is clearly an innovation area,
Yes.
as you pointed out.
Yes. And you need
Wondering
data for
what,
that, right? I mean,
yeah,
you think about the Uber model, right? How much data they collect to do what they do.
right. So you see innovation almost sort of feeding that.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right, right? So you got to be, and there's a lot of data sources. It's not only, I need to know what is the health of the assets that we're maintaining, right? Are they going up and down? I've got preventative schedules. I've got preventative maintenance. I've got reactive maintenance. Is it going, if I cut back on preventative maintenance because there's no demand, does that increase my reactive maintenance because I'm not looking after something? So I need real-time data to know where my asset health and scores are. I need, we need a lot of work order data. We do a lot of work order data mining to understand what's being worked on, what's not being worked on. I need occupancy information, right? Are people in the building, not in the building? I need capital planning data. So should I fix it or should I just run to fail and recommend that? And then in which case I need capital planning information. I need skills data. Have I got the right guy with the right skill to do the job that I'm sending him to? Availability, what's his schedule? What's his available work schedule that he's got? So it's significantly wide spectrum of data.
So
Can we-
this is all extremely interesting. And the thing that interests me the most is we've spent an inordinate amount of time in this group talking about ontologies and data for building automation. But if you could go into a minute what the actual sources of this other data are and how you fought the ontology wars there. So asset management, for instance, or capital planning, any of the things you just rattled off, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, it's actually a really good question, Jim, and very topical and top of the mind. And we call it the asset mapping problem, is what we call it internally, right? No one calls the same asset the same thing. I mean, to give you a classic, I'm the simplest example I can give you. No one person that's involved in any building calls that building the same thing. The building, forget about the air handling unit or the chiller or the table or the desk. No one seems to can agree on what the building's called, right? What address is it? Is it the postal address? Is it the front door address? Is it the name that everybody commonly calls it? Is it the delivery address that's at the back? Is it that, well, I'm a tenant in that building, and so my client might be a tenant in the building, but he only occupies 3 of the floors? So even, I mean, asset mapping is one of the biggest challenges we have in the industry, in that getting alignment on what is that thing called? What do you call that air handling unit? Back to your point about when you drill all the way down to the actual end equipment that we've got. What is that air handling unit called? What areas does it serve? All right, if I've got too hot in a conference room, how do I know what it's related to from a mechanical systems perspective? Lighting, even if the lighting doesn't work, okay, well, what distribution panel does it come from for that particular room? So
I'm totally understanding, the mechanical system stuff, but where I struggle is, having not looked at enough asset management data or capital planning data, are there any standards there that
No, well,
have
that's
been created? or
yeah, that's a
how
really,
do we
really
think
good
about that
question,
stuff?
and I struggle with this, right? And we've been down the BIM path and stuff, and stuff like that. But there's one more. There's a couple of dimensions that BIM doesn't work for us in some areas. One is and you guys know this, the whole systems of systems relationships.
Mhm.
Right. It doesn't really address the systems of systems. If this is this a subsystem of some other system, because it deals more with the physicals more than anything else. But there's a lot of relational stuff that we have to deal with that it struggles trying to deal with. That's one piece. The other piece that I find is it doesn't deal well with what we call the position problem. If I have a pump that I'm looking after, and that pump is pump 01, but when first installed, it was this make and this model and this serial number and this nameplate data and everything else. But somewhere along the line, we changed the pump out. Same pump, same function, same purpose, but totally different asset, same location, but it's a totally different asset at this point in time, right? Is the history of the old pump relevant, at that point, or not relevant, or stuff like that? So to answer your question, we actually struggle with ontologies in that space. Although I think you guys have heard me pontificate about this in the past, right? In that when we get to asset naming ontologies, with the advent of machine learning, do we really need ontologies anymore? Is a question that I'm pushing my data science folks with at the moment. Do we really? Because at the moment, of course, we put a lot of effort into, if we have an ontology, regardless of what the ontology is, we put a lot of work into how do I map the actual thing that's in the building to this ontology standard that we've defined. And the good folks, of course, are using AI as much as possible these days to do that. There's a lot of AI going on to do that, and Keith knows a lot about this. But then what we do, of course, is the thing I do immediately after I have that ontology in the data, I hand it to another AI machine to go do some of the analysis I need to do. The question is, in that model, if I'm going from something that's, HVAC, HUO4 AI to some ontology to some other AI, did I need that ontology step in the first place? Can't I just use the AI to continue doing the analysis I've done? If the AI knows what it is, let the AI go on to the next step and work out the problem I'm trying to solve. Right. Now, at the end of the day, I still need to know the very end, whatever the end thing was called, right? Room 601 or pump 02 or whatever the thing was, so that when a technician or person does go to site, he knows, yeah, this is the one I'm looking at, just to be sure. But the question I've started to ask is, do you need to do all that? And again, ontologies were developed for people. Ontologies aren't needed for machines.
However, we still do have people in the loop.
And we still have people in the loop.
Will for some period of time.
Yeah, there'll be a transition, I'm sure. But I don't even know if that's in my lifetime, Jim. So.
Right. But for those of you who haven't been on the call for a long time, Anno does pray to the robot god from time to time, because
I love the robots.
I'd like to, Anno, that was pretty interesting. It's something because we struggle with the ontology and all that stuff. And then the real landmines, like you can always tell the people that have actually dug into this enterprise stuff, like with the changing point names. That reminds me of something that we faced early on with the enterprise system across retailers when they would upgrade the Novar Savvy system to the latest Tritium. All the points would change.
Yeah.
Same equipment. How do you deal with that at scale? Well, you have to have an as of date in the historical trending. So any system that I look at and it doesn't have an as of date for the trend, it would have to dynamically switch before and after which system. It would have to know which system the history came from. And so when you mentioned that just reminded me of, those are the kind of things that kind of get you when you're trying to engineer a real system in the real world.
Yeah, those are the things that we had to grapple with 20 to 25 years ago.
Right.
And that's the difference between really doing analytics and not.
Yeah. You can't
that's
tell the
exactly
customer
right.
they can't change out their equipment. Like that's not an option.
Right.
And just extend that thought, Keith, from that's when we changed the intermediate control system. Now think about, well, we've changed the pump, right? And has a totally different characteristics to what it used. So I need a as of date for the pump
Yep.
as well, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we don't want to
So-
throw away years of history just because that something changed. Like,
Right.
you know, what are you going to do? Or
Well, how do you know? I mean, if you have that, you can start doing the investment for the $10,000 pump install and everything else was worth it because here, look what it was before and look what it is.
exactly.
Right? Because
Exactly.
measurement and verification, which is actually, and you guys have heard me pontificate on this as well. I actually do believe with the advent of AI and ontologies and all that gear, measurement and verification is going to become a much more significant aspect of what we do.
Oh, it's an integral part. It already is. Like
Yeah, but I think we kind of gave it secondary service. When people start to ask the question, well, how does your algorithm, make this happen? Well, I can't tell you. It's a black box.
Yeah, no, we're IP MVP option C.
There you go.
That's it.
David.
Hey, Anno, I would love to understand how you're seeing innovation scale to counteract the departure of institutional knowledge of senior engineers and building engineers as they retire and there aren't replacements for them. You have huge visibility across the world into that. How are you seeing technology help that transition? And where do you see the most significant gaps as that institutional knowledge in the brains of those folks leave?
So with the way that we describe that easily, the way I describe that, David, internally is, we've got that wizard and he knows the pair of wires in the building with a bit of electrical tape on it that you'd never touch, right? If you touch those wires and undo it, the whole thing's going to go to crap. You could do a whole lot with knowledge transfer and help and educate the next technician on, how to read the alarm or how to read the temperature or how to reset a thermostat or whatever else. But I forgot to tell you where those wires were, that you shouldn't touch, that type of deal, which is the institutional knowledge that he's gained.
That job security that they had for so long.
Yeah. And then you couple that with, you guys may or may not know, but, when a property owner changes property management, right? When they go from a JLL to CBRE to a Cushman Wakefield, the facility guys stay with the building. They don't, it's not like CBRE, we take all those folks and go send them off to another building, another project, right? They stay with the building. So my point about that is that institutional knowledge keeps growing with them. And the funnest example I ever had of that was the guy who actually runs our building here in Dallas. He's not even, he used to be a CBRE guy, but it's actually managed by someone else. And I was talking to him about this subject. He goes, Arno, I have 5 different t-shirt colors. This is every time the building owner, a new property manager walks in the door, nothing changes. The only thing that changes for me is I get a new cup, a new t-shirt, and that's it. Everything else is, and a new boss, and everything else is the same, right? My route to work's the same, the work is the same, the problems are the same, my challenge is the same, the tenant's the same. I just get a new shirt and a new coffee cup. And to your point, so that institutional knowledge, it's not even that when the property manager changes, a new team comes in and learns it all over, learns it again. And now if we have 2 or 3 folks who understand it, it's the same guy. And he'll be there for 10, 15 years, regardless of how many property managers come and go into the system. So back to your question about how do you obtain that institutional knowledge and stuff? We do a lot of ways. We actually have a very active XRS program, extended reality. We capture a lot of video. Interesting stuff you can do with video these days, by the way. The biggest challenge that we've really got, probably, David, more than anything else, is the impact of that situation as it relates to demand-based facility management, right? Because it's one thing if you've got the facility guy in the building all the time, and it's the guy who's been there for 15 years, and you go, hey, we need to reset, the stat on air handling unit 4. Okay, I know what to do here. I'll go. If I've got DBFM, I'm going to send a technician who probably needs directions as where to find air handling unit 4 to begin with, let alone what stats there, what he has to do, what model it is. Is he skilled to do it's not a static valve, is he skilled to do a Belima valve or, whatever.
Well, you probably even need to tell him where the building is.
To begin with, yes. Yes, and how to get there. And even simple, to your point, how do you actually drive there? And we actually look at optimizing their routes, right? It's the UPS FedEx problem, right? You just don't make right turns, make left turns, right? Because
No, it's the opposite. Make right turns, not left turns.
Oh yeah, sorry, wrong country. Yes, make
Yeah.
right.
No.
Yeah, right. Anyway, yeah, go with the flow, right? So it magnifies the problem, demand-based facility management, because I'm probably not even taking the subject matter expert that I've got there. How do I actually take him out of the equation and make him teach the other ones that are coming in. We do a lot of work with remote operation centers that we find that actually works, right? So remote operation centers supported facility management is a big deal because you can institutionalize some of that knowledge in a remote operation center. It's actually a value proposition that we push, right? How do you take it out?
That's if the systems have the instrumentation to even give any feedback for that.
Yes, exactly.
What percentage of buildings do you think have that level of sensor and instrumentation to enable a remote team to actually even know what's going on?
Yeah, I would. The number I would use is the same number of buildings that have a fairly recent building automation system, right? And if it's got a BAS system or some front end like a Tritium or a Forge or an OpenBlue or something decent on the front end of it, you've got a shot.
It's the same thing that they have to use when they're on site.
Yeah.
So it's just a longer cord.
It's just a longer cord.
Well, sometimes I've seen so many systems where you only know. The command to start the motor has been sent and supposedly it's on, but no one really actually knows if that fan is even working. Because there's no sensor on the output side or in the vents or anything, flow sensor.
Well, that's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is where so what is the percentage, Anno, of those buildings where
even in our portfolios, it's low. To be honest.
So 1 in 20?
That would probably be a little on the low side. It's probably a tad more than that. We do.
So 1 in 19. Okay.
Our XRS program steps in a lot in those areas too, by the way. We do a lot of over the shoulder with XRS support, extended reality support. There's some cool technologies happening there. We're finding a lot of the ones who are not equipped, you could do that. You could still do the remote, except now it's a body who's not expert on the system per se, but they're basically remote hands.
Smart hands.
One of the more interesting aspects of using modern technology like AI and just digital technology, period, is this notion of derived points.
Yes.
To your point, David, like you might have local feedback versus remote feedback. Just means the relay closed. If the fan's on fire, it's not running. So there's other ways that you can denote whether a fan is on. What's the supply air temperature? What's the static pressure? Is it 0.02 or is it 1.5 inches? So you can actually virtualize stuff like that with modern technology. So we're overcoming that stuff, and technology makes it possible to do that. So you can even enhance the capabilities of the ancient legacy control system.
Actually, that's a really, really good point, Keith, because it does change the way that you set up those systems if you've got in mind that you're doing remote management to begin with.
Oh, absolutely.
So the way you then program those systems, even though they may or may not have had it, like Keith says, you now go in and do those sort of things to cover for those sort of situations, right? We call them synthetic points now.
Yep.
So Anno,
So
I'm
can I-
curious. I got a question for you, Anno. So when your sales team is looking at a new opportunity, and they obviously need to put a price on the project, and it's specific now to the automation side of things, right? Is there any kind of a formal process you guys do in your walkthrough to gather relevant data and then be able to feed that data into a model that, if you will, it's kind of an after the fact BIM, if you will, that can then inform you, not only inform how to put the price on the project, but give your technical team guidance on what they're going to need to do to move forward and operationalize the system?
Yeah, that's a good question, Steve. So that's what we call the RFP process, right? When a new client wants to do a new property manager, there's an RFP process. So a couple of things that we do, just to be clear, we always put our standard tech stack into every RFP, right? So you kind of get it because we know what the savings are that it generates as a result if you run with the standard tech stack. But to your question about how much of that, what is the cost of what's the estimate of what that cost is going to be? So we do have calculators, we call them calculators, that based on standard asset collection stuff. Typically, the challenge really is that in the RFP phase, it's usually short cycles, highly intense, lots of people involved. There's everything from janitorial to compliance monitoring to cyber. There's a whole spectrum of things that you have to deal with. So on the technology side, yeah, we have a lot of standard calculators. We do have a team of folks who've been doing this for quite some time who are we have subject matter experts in the space, which is a challenge for us, who can look up, see what the model of the equipment is. We make some assumptions, so they're all baked into our calculators. They're pretty good. I mean, they're based over time. Weirdly enough, I think that's another challenge area that I think AI can help as well, right? At the moment, we're heavily dependent on subject matter experts, but I think it's an area that AI can help do a better job of estimating, what the cost is to execute against that.
I'd like to bring Glenn into this conversation. Glenn, you've been around smart systems for a couple of years at least. I'm not sure. I'd like to get your sort of reaction to this, and I don't know whether you know all of this and what actually happens in buildings and operations. Have you ever thought about this? Is this something that regularly surface in your sort of thinking in your work?
Right. I mean, I think obviously the biggest problem is that all of this is so circumstantial that other than AI solving world hunger, I end up with these instances where I'm trying to solve problems where there is no automation in the building, or there's little to none, or so I mean, you have whatever the allocation of problem solving and systems that know things about problem solving in the context of the installed systems, but things that I have monitored or things that I have collected data on or otherwise. You have instances of things occurring where you don't have a lot of history around whatever's occurring, or you don't know if you do. And you have things that involve people solving problems and some, I presume, some huge variability to how somebody gets dispatched to go solve this problem based on those two poles I described earlier, which is I do or I don't know very much about what's going on. Obviously, the more you have cumulative systems collecting data on various types of devices and systems and how they perform over time, obviously AI opens the opportunity to enable a lot more capability around how a person should think about problem solving around a given instance of something. But historically, I've always sort of thought the building space would never, who spends that kind of money to accumulate that kind of knowledge? I mean, the analogy here would be like Cisco, has prided itself for, more than whatever, I don't know, 20, 25 years on, having virtually seen any problem that can occur in its switches and routers and network equipment occur so many times that it's already has this sort of built-in knowledge base for problem solving.
Yeah.
It's wildly context specific. And and so my answer to the question is, I think these kinds of systems over time can be organized better to assist humans in the loop doing things around these systems. I don't think there's any question of that. I just don't think it will go as far because it doesn't have the same uniformity and scale and homogeneity that something like Cisco's network equipment does. And
Yeah. That's a really good point, Glenn, is that at the end of the day, you can only deal with what we got, right? Type of deal. I do have, like I said, I do have the luxury a little bit of having a lot more data than just the BAS systems that we pull, from. There's a wider spectrum of things that we look at. And HVAC is still, at the end of the day, what is it? 80% of your problems are still too hot, too cold, type of deals. We've kind of solved all the other problems, right? We know how to keep the lights on pretty much these days. Lights tend not to break, and we know how to keep the doors locked pretty much these days. We're dealing more with aging mechanical equipment, which generates your too hot, too cold stuff, which is
right.
your typical complaint. And then the capital required to fix those things, right? How do you, at what point do you throw it out? At what point do you start something new?
Are you leveraging your ticket information?
Yeah, 100%.
And
Yeah.
using that to actually build the types of teams you need? If you could go into that, that would be spectacular.
Yeah, we got, just to give you some examples, without going too deep, one of the things we have is what we call a next action engine. To your point, so we can mine all of our work order data. You've got a problem with an air handling unit cycling, right? So you could mine all your work order ticket data that we've collected over the decades and go through what did the top 100 best technicians do when an air handling unit cycles. Okay, you can mine that. Here's the next action that you could do. The only challenge we typically have with that, which is changing, is that the quality of that data is typically poor, right? The technician will go get a ticket, air handling unit cycling. He knows what to do. He fixes it, but all he puts in the follow-up action is fixed, repaired, or without a lot of detail. So the sheer fact that we are actually mining that data is actually incentivizing them to put better quality data into those tickets as well, and when we close them out. So we have a self-interest in doing that. Things like maintenance optimization. Do you really need to do a preventative work order on an air handling unit every 4 months or 3 months? So there's a lot of data that we can mine, which is both work order data and also the real-time data, right? The actual asset health data, and start to mine those sort of things. Nothing goes past, but the most valuable thing you've always got is the technician who walks in and can look at a pump and go like, nah, I don't need to do that.
I think
how do you get that piece?
I think that's one of the areas that automation and maybe even more specifically cloud and or AI applications can help. I've often said anything that is currently on a schedule-based maintenance system, but really should be on a usage or demand-based system is a perfect candidate for systems like this, right? One pump might run 10 times more than the one next to it. So they shouldn't both be on the same annual maintenance schedule, right? So I think pulling that I don't know if you've seen any of that. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit, but when you start converting from scheduled based maintenance to demand based maintenance, have you seen that happening yet very often or not yet?
Yeah, it's starting. I mean, it's starting to transition. And the problem really is, Tracy, is we still don't have a lot of good quality data to work
Yeah.
from, right? Yeah, had we done a better job collecting the data, but that's always like trying to predict the future, right? It's easy to know what I should have collected if I knew what the problem is in the future.
Doesn't this
It's-
bring us back though to you know, I don't expect the following statement to necessarily be true, but manufacturers ought to have a ton of data on their devices at this point in time.
That's a really interesting question, Glenn. It's something that I struggled with, right?
Right.
And um, and the general answer is no. And I don't know why, right? And I suspect a lot of reasons. One is they lose visibility once the machine goes into the building and they no longer have visibility into it. But then again, I could also would be wondering, how often do they track that this model pump has been replaced out in, South Asia 100 times in a year. That
But
would
this is a classic place where you do have the intersection between all these strange behaviors within the broader ecosystem that could be much more conducive if they were a little bit more
Right.
forthcoming. Yes, I mean, this gets back to, open 101 or something.
I also think it's a mentality question, Glenn, where
I agree.
they're product manufacturers, not systems manufacturers. And, I've always been fascinated with the chiller business in particular. People generating very large pieces of capital equipment, and they're very underinformed about how their equipment is actually operating in someone else's design in the field.
Yeah.
So I've been amazed by that. They might monitor data on their piece of equipment, but on the system at large, I mean, that's why there are companies that have sprung up over time to optimize central plants.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think that the manufacturers would be selling that technology or selling complete central plants? I would.
I think there's a business opportunity there for people. I would say manufacturers aren't doing a good job about even monitoring their own equipment in that.
Well,
Once it goes out the door, that's the last they hear about it, unless
Exactly.
they're on a maintenance schedule.
It's not even real data. Like I've literally gotten into this with manufacturers on chillers. Like my machine can't do 0.65 kW per ton or 0.55. It's like, well, yeah, you got it on your little test stand in your environment. This is the real world, and you don't have AI technology controlling it. So yeah, that to me, that data isn't even relevant, to be honest. It's not.
Even if your point, Keith, is even if they had it, it wouldn't be.
Even if they had it,
Right.
it still would be meaningless.
Well, and there's a perfect example too, Keith, of a piece of information that a manufacturer could and should likely be making use of in their sales and marketing, right? Look, our chillers can actually be configured and operated to run this efficiently, and they're not even doing that.
Nope, not at all. And the thing is, I think there's been a theme reoccurring during this discussion. It's a great one. It's like the real world versus what we think the customer wants and what brings value.
Yes.
So ontology versus derived points or synthetic points. Manufacturers data, got to get all that data up ahead of time, right? Or you won't be able to optimize it. No, not true. There's all these like old wives' tales or whatever you want to call it, like these fallacies in the industry. And people are just out there bumping around into things, trying to figure out what the value is instead of getting into the grind and rolling up their sleeves and actually doing this stuff to figure out.
Okay. All right. So my view in 2020 hindsight is historically in the building space, people just didn't want to re-up and pay for that.
And they shouldn't pay for it.
Well, right. Okay. But my point simply is we've gotten to the point where data is cheap and we should be we should be better informed systemically.
And you're right, Glenn. It was actually a little what was behind that is it's not just the data and the storage and things associated with that. It's the sensor, and then it's the connectivity for the telemetry and
Right.
and
Right.
all of that stuff over the past decade has come down significantly, right? It's like the perfect storm. And then on top of that, the younger workers out there running these machines expect to have that kind of a thing, look for that kind of a thing. And when they don't have it, it's like, what?
They're actually pissed off and annoyed when you tell them I don't have it.
Yeah.
They're actually like, well, what?
Yeah.
In their minds, it seems so fantastic that you couldn't or wouldn't. That it's just whatever.
I think the shock really hit me yesterday when my wife and I went out to Best Buy and we bought a 50-inch plasma TV, or not even plasma now, it's UHD or whatever, and it was $250.
Yeah.
I remember in June of 2000, after I sold my first company, I bought a 50-inch Pioneer PLP plasma TV. It was $25,000. Like literally, it was 100 times cheaper to get the same size screen. Like this is, so when people talk about technology and how it's not going to scale and how the cost of, it's going to go up and not going to go up in value, like literally it's $250 versus $25,000. 25 years later, by the way.
But this would go, okay, so somebody said it earlier, but this would quickly go to a point, which is, I think the cost of the technology and the cost of getting access to the data that allows for a lot more of this optimization kind of stuff to occur is a lot cheaper than it ever has been.
Absolutely.
And I don't think, just like people in the building ops space just look at energy and forget all the rest of the ops and what goes on as a cost factor. I just think you end up with a much more compelling value proposition than underlying economics to make that case now by orders of magnitude, just like your display example.
I think that's a good point, Glenn. I mean, and the reason Ed asked me to talk, my focus is highly operational focused innovation, right? But there's many other aspects of the use of data in the building, right? The energy use, the tenant comfort, situation, the occupancy. There's a whole lot of other things from an innovation perspective. I'm just primarily focused on the operation component.
Right. Your optimization problem is wildly more heterogeneous. You got people, systems, and equipment, and a whole bunch of other factors playing all the time.
But from an innovation perspective, what I think is a paradox is that we're talking about data is cheap. You can get to anything. There's all this stuff out there. Yet a lot of times we can't even find the building like we were talking about earlier, right? So which one's more important? And we're not at the Uber stage yet, and we have too much information. And we can layer in AI to do that. But going back to, I know what you said about BIM too, I think it's also kind of a hammer and nail problem that innovation, we kind of tend to think, oh, we'll throw BIM at it or throw whatever at it. Really, our focus should be on how do we make it as simple as possible in a package that's useful for that use case, because BIM in the traditional sense is not the right place to maintain the building over time, like you said. So there's all these little pieces. And I think what we're doing at the C4SB, the working groups that we talked about earlier, we're trying to break it up into small pieces and say, okay, how are systems connected? What is the important piece of information without flooding and just loading the bucket with everything? It's like, what is needed for that thing? Can you find the building? Yes, no, okay. Then you go to the next stage and you say, what else is important? And that's not an exaggeration, right? I work with government agencies. They literally cannot find their buildings, right?
The poor idiot's view of the end value.
I wanted to say on the C4SB thing, we're trying to push that. So when the younger generation has the expectation that I ought to be able to navigate and see everything that's in the building, why can't I connect to this? There's got to be some simple way to be able to connect to that. We're trying to make it uncomfortable for the vendors that are making it difficult to get that data. So that's one of the things we want to encourage, is that through open source and open standards, everybody should have the expectation that I can get the data from these different systems. And there's got to be some reference model for how to connect to that system or this system. And whether it's maintenance management or a mechanical system or a vendor A or vendor B, we'd like for there to be that, to encourage that expectation to be realized, but also to be realized in an open standards and open source way, and to be able to have templates for how everything can be connected.
But this just goes to a really simple idea, which is you gotta actually want to be smart in order to have a smart building, right? I mean, really.
But I do want to
Less
circle
of-
back just to sum up from my side to Kimon's point. We take the same approach, Kimon. We're very pragmatic at it, right? We don't just like, oh, let's just go get everything for the sake of getting everything. We do focus on what are we trying to solve and what are we trying to, you know, what one piece of this monster are we trying to solve? And so we're very pragmatic at our approach on that. Because yeah, you could just drive yourself nuts otherwise trying to solve.
Yeah, and the vendor will just keep selling you more and more data and more stuff, and then you have to sift through it.
Okay, we do need to bring this to a wrap. I think this has been I think really useful conversation. Thank you, Anno, for leading it.
Sure.
That point that Duncan raised is obviously very important. We
Yeah.
talked about it at the beginning. Aligning the naming of assets or the meaning of assets. Maybe we'll come back to that because I don't think we have enough time here. But
Yeah, solve what the building is called first, and then I'll worry about the children.
yeah, and it's actually one of the threads that's going through a number of C4SB working groups. One specifically is the semantic building one, and this is really what they're trying to figure out from their perspective. And from the IBB, we have a similar sort of quest as well. So it's very important and it's recognized by a lot of different groups. So thank you all for this conversation. We'll get the video up next day or so. Have a great week, and we'll come back next Monday. See you then.
All right.
Right?
Yeah.
Later.
Bye all.
Bye.